A hearty welcome to New England Authors with Kameel Nasr. I'm so happy that you can be here and share with us this region's expertise and experience with the wonderful people that we have on the show. And we have a really wonderful person on the show here, Kathy Eliscu. Eliscu.
Very close.
All right. And you have this a book, Not Even Dark Chocolate Can Fix This Mess.
Yes.
What inspired you to write that?
Oh, well, actually the book grew out of frustration and anger, turned into humor. So
It's a good way to go.
Yeah, I was at a point in my life, this was about a dozen years ago, when I was working at a very large hospital as a nurse, and I was going through some hormonal changes which were making me really hot a lot of the time.
Now, it just so happens that the protagonist in this book is also a nurse going through hormonal changes. Is that right?
I didn't realize that. Yeah. No, she is, and a lot of family pressures. What I did was, one day I was out walking my dog.
Yes.
The dog had to go outside, so I have this little dog on a leash. And it was just one of those days that I was brimming with frustration. And I started to think, what if this happened in my life? And what if this happened in my life? And it grew into like a crazy story that over a period of many years took shape. So in a way, it was therapy. It is fiction, although it's based on some real-life events, but it's highly fictionalized.
I was going to ask you how much is real and how much is... I enjoyed your character very much.
Thank you.
Yes.
I had fun with her, too. I let her go places where I wouldn't go, and that was part of the fun of writing it.
Yeah, I think humor is the hardest thing to write, because... You could say, I could say something very funny, and I could say it in a funny way, but when you write it, you don't know how the reader is going to take it. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think it is hard to write. I'm writing a more serious piece right now, and that's much easier.
Now, you're a Maine writer, right?
I am.
There's a lot of Maine writers. What is it? Is it that people go to Maine to write, or Maine gives them the inspiration to write?
I don't know. I really don't know.
Did you grow up in Maine?
No, I spent summers in Maine from the time I was 5. I used to go up to Maine. My parents were frugal Depression-era kids, and once they could finally afford it, I was the youngest of 4 kids.
Yeah.
We started going up to Maine for 1 week each summer, and that grew. And when I was in my early 20s, my parents had just moved up here, so I moved up with my nice ex-husband and my tiny little girl, and I never left.
Okay.
But Maine is full of writers. We have a very active, just full, wonderfully supportive group called Maine Writers and Publishers Alliance.
Right.
Lots and lots of members. I don't know the numbers, but there are a number of them, and they meet in small groups as well. So you said that 12 years it took you to write. Did I understand that correctly? About 10 years.
10 years.
Yeah, from start to finish. But I was doing it in little pieces as life went on.
Is this your first book?
It is.
Oh, congratulations.
Thanks.
It's fun. It's a good, fun read. What is it about chocolate?
Well, at that point in my life, and I guess still, and for many people, probably more for women, I think that, you get in a situation in your life and all of a sudden what you want to do is comfort yourself, and chocolate seems to be one of the favorite things that people gravitate to.
So, I enjoyed reading it.
Thank you.
And I didn't think it was a woman's book. But you think is it a woman? That's the classification?
Well, not necessarily. No? I think when I tell people about it, I usually say it's that women really love it, and also evolved males.
Evolved males.
Evolved males, like it's you put yourself in a really wonderful category.
Oh, I see. Okay. And did you write every day in these 10 years that it took you? No.
No.
Just like when the spirit moved you?
Yep, I write in batches. I'll write for a couple days off and on, or a few days, and then I might put something away for a while.
Now, you wrote for a newspaper as well, right?
Mm-hmm. I still do, but I've written for some magazines and newspapers over the years. I'm particularly good at finding little supplement jobs that you see
Yes.
it when you get your Sunday paper and there's a supplement.
Oh,
I seem to have
I see.
made my way into that genre, which is fine.
Humor, or
usually humor. For a few years, I wrote for something called Raising Maine, which was aimed at moms and children. Moms of children, and that was a paper magazine and an online magazine. But so my entries were usually humor, but then after a while they asked me if I wanted to do some regular reporting of different kinds of human interest stories. So I did that for a while. That was fun.
Yeah, so this book is a little bit different than most books you read. There's illustrations in it. There's a line of exclamation points. There's shaded areas. How did you get this creativity?
Well, it could have been an illness maybe, but can I show some of the...
Sure, yeah.
So what started happening was I actually started writing this about 6 months after my mother passed. And because I was the executor of her estate and the power of attorney, my dad was still alive, but he had dementia. So I noticed that because my name then was kind of electronically coupled with her name, I started getting things like postcards for her or offers in the mail long after
Right.
she died. And for
Yes.
years, I still once in a while will get them. Offers, well, let me see if I could pull one out here. Macy's would send her something saying,
that happens to everybody.
Right.
After someone
Right.
passes away, you still get mail and
That's
their
right.
names and things.
That's
yeah.
right. And at a time when I was really hurting and missing her, I would get something from a department store saying, your new anti-aging cream is in, call up for your appointment. Or,
I read that in the book.
Right.
Yes, that's right.
Right. Or this. Now this, obviously I changed a lot of things
Jim's
and embellished,
yes,
but
yes,
Jim's
yes.
Auto World,
Yeah.
6-month notice. Marjorie, you're overdue for your scheduled maintenance. Call today. And I actually, when I got hostile enough at some of these places, I would call up and say, I'm afraid she's not going to be able to come in for her appointment.
Yeah.
She is deceased. And then I'd hear the other person on the end of the phone, oh, I'm so sorry.
Yes,
Can you
yes.
please take her off the list?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Why don't you read a little passage to give us the flavor of the book? Because I said it's a different kind of book. It doesn't have the same. You could see from the cover, it's a different kind of book. There's crossings outs and so on.
And it was a monster to edit this thing.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time. A lot of those 10 years was on editing. So hang on just a second.
So when you were editing it, was that somebody else that did it or you?
No,
Yeah.
I did all the editing up until the very end, and then I had it published through a hybrid publisher in Maine called Maine Authors Publishing, and
Yeah.
they have a fine editor on staff. They might have a couple, but the one that I used, Jeannie, was my final editor, and it was very, very useful. By the way, I wanted to add, because you asked about newspapers, I'm currently writing for My Generation Maine magazine.
It's a magazine?
It's a magazine, but it's part
My
now.
Generation, that's...
Boomers.
That's boomers.
Yeah, but it's part of, there's a large umbrella called Maine Today Media. I hope I'm getting that right. The Portland Press Herald, Maine Sunday Telegram. Now the fellow that owns lots of the lesser tiered newspapers and magazines.
Go ahead and read something for us.
Okay, while I'm reading, would you like some chocolate?
Some chocolate, okay.
Okay.
All right.
This one has peanut butter. I don't know if you're able to.
Now, is there, are you the definitive expert on chocolate, whether people like milk chocolate or dark chocolate or white chocolate?
Well, I have a theory. I have many crazy theories, and one of them is that men gravitate more toward milk chocolate and women to dark, but today I was proved wrong.
Yeah, no, I like dark chocolate.
Okay.
No.
Well, this one has caramel in it. So.
All right.
Okay. All right. We pause once again whilst our hero contemplates the meaning of womanhood. Before I read this, is it okay to use bad language? I don't think there was any in this one.
All right.
I'm okay.
Not too bad language.
Okay.
All right.
Hormones, young and old. I said I have PMS, and I'm not kidding. Okay, don't skip this part. Get a little snack to eat while you're reading. Maybe a nice piece of fruit. Wash it first.
Uh-huh.
In 5th grade, we girls were ushered into the school auditorium and shown the film that held the secret to our exciting female future. Mm-hmm. As a few curious boys strained at the rear windows of the darkened auditorium, we sat and watched our instructional presentation, which was a plumbing film that told us nothing about being female. The lights went up. Any questions? Yawned the scrawny, graying school nurse, whom we suspected only pretended to be a female itself. She was the most sexless creature created on 2 legs. No way could we ask a question of the woman who responded to any ailment we had with her own question, have you moved your bowels this morning? She'd hand us a magazine and point to the tiny bathroom behind her desk in the nurse's office. Okay, sometimes it helped, but still. So there we girls were in the auditorium, being handed a pamphlet called Growing Up and Liking It. It was an effort by a sanitary napkin company to hook our business. Most of us were too excited and curious about the thought of actively growing breasts and wearing a bra, so grown up, to question whether the other aspects of femaleness might not be all that much fun. In fact, we might not like it at all. Fortunately, my mother was very open and natural about all that stuff, so becoming a woman was exciting and not traumatic. Then again, her perception of some things was a little skewed. Like in regard to childbirth, she told me labor was like menstrual cramps. Oh, my ex-husband also thought her version of childbirth was a bit off after I dug my nails into him during transition, just before Allie was born. Just like menstrual cramps, there's a man walking around today with scars to disprove that one. But what my mom totally left out was all this perimenopausal junk. I don't recall her mentioning it. Oh, wait, she did. I remember now. She said, had a couple of hot flashes, felt nice and warm for a minute, that was all. Okay, I'm not trying to imply that my wonderful mother was a liar. No, she was very ethical. But she must have had one heck of an accommodating body, or some incredible drugs. And now that I think about it, she was awfully pleasant. Oh, and there's something else she left out. I can't talk about that now. Note to any males who might be reading this. Women realize life is just as difficult for men as it is for women. Now please close this book and go do something else, like hammer some wood together. I'm trying to talk to my girlfriends. Thank you. I'm not bashing men, not at all. I like them, except for once in a while when they can't read my mind. I know, I can't understand it either.
Well, thank you. A reading from Kathy Eliscu, Not Even Dark Chocolate Can Fix This Mess. This is New England Authors with Kameel Nasr. So I just want to ask you a little serious question now. You lost your husband recently. Did he get a chance to read your book?
Yes, he read it. Ted was my reader. When I wrote columns, he was always my reader and gave me feedback. And what I loved about him was no matter what I wrote, pretty much, he would stand there afterwards with tears in his eyes and say, it's good. I just loved that. He was the greatest reader. But yes, I lost him to brain cancer 3.5 years ago. And the book that I'm writing now, the serious piece, is something that he and I had been writing together when he got sick. We actually.
So it's like a testament of you together?
Well, we both started writing when he first was diagnosed, and we didn't realize that the other one was also writing.
Yeah.
So but it took about 6 months for us to realize that, and then we decided to try to put it together into something of a book. And I'm working hard on it. It's not easy because he's not here to help me work with it at this point. And we got about 3/4 done when he wasn't able to go on anymore with it cognitively. So in his last weeks, I told him I would finish that book. And I like to tell people, be careful what you promise somebody as they're laying there in their last days, because now I feel like I have to finish the darn thing, but I will. And it's been hard to get to it.
Yes.
You know, emotionally.
Yeah, I understand. Well, thank you for coming and sharing.
Thank you.
So tell us a bit about Tink, the protagonist.
Oh, well, Tink is going through perimenopause, which is when the hormones are going crazy prior to menopause.
Right.
And so one minute she's enraged about something, and the next minute she's melting over something, and with great love and affection, the sight of a new baby, or something lovely that comes into her life. And at the same time, she's trying to kind of manage the household. She's living with the man she loves, and still raising her youngest, her teenager, who's going off to college. And she's working in a field. She's a nurse, which I am.
Yes.
And she's working in a field which is fraught with lots of difficulties in today's healthcare climate. So there's lots of management issues that filter down to the worker bees. And
but she also becomes a advice columnist, right? She starts giving people advice. Is that right?
Well, this character can't say no to anyone, and her niece starts asking her for some advice very casually, and pretty soon her niece's friends are calling her and writing to her. And before she knows it, the niece has, this whole thing is blown out of proportion. I don't want to give it away, but...
Yes. In England, such a writer is called an agony aunt. An agony aunt.
Yes.
And now I think, what's the word here? Dear Abby columnist or something like that. Do you like to give advice?
I'd love giving advice.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
You love to
do you have a problem you would like to tell me?
No, I don't have any problem. But thank you for bringing all this chocolate, by the way. Do you want to be a matchmaker?
Well, I am a matchmaker with absolutely no success rate, but in the book, the protagonist is always trying to match people up.
Exactly.
Very unsuccessfully.
Yes. And so this book is kind of you, right?
Well, it's based on me, but there's a lot of fiction going on, especially the storyline itself is fiction.
Who were like some of your inspirations? Authors that inspired you?
Oh, I love chick lit. I love reading Sophie Kinsella and Meg Cabot. They're probably my longtime favorites, although I've branched out a bit, but they're just fun. Any female writer, especially who writes light stuff, funny stuff, books that involve the main character getting herself into a predicament. I always find that kind of fun. Yes.
There's a lot of predicaments in here. What's on your nightstand right now?
Oh, yes.
Oh, no, your right stand at home.
Oh.
What's on your nightstand at home?
I'm reading, I just finished The Last Anniversary by, give me a moment. Give me a senior moment for a minute.
Oh no, you're not a senior. But just some of the books. Is it chick lit that's on your nightstand?
A little chick lit with a little twist. Darn it, I'll come back to her. I love, and I may not be pronouncing it correctly, but Jhumpa Lahiri, who wrote The Namesake.
Yes.
I try to read as many books as I can by her. I like mysteries a lot.
Yes.
I like Tess Gerritsen, who's a main author. She's a physician turned author.
Yeah, I do know her, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
her books are fun, and I'm really annoyed at myself that I'm blocking on the other author's name. But she's the one that wrote Big Little Lies.
So when you go somewhere, do you pass chocolate around?
Yes, I always have chocolate with me at signings, and I thought today I would, bequeath some chocolate upon you. But I also usually have some in my purse for emergencies.
Oh.
Because what if something happens? You get stuck in an elevator, or you get lost somewhere. You've got to have a piece of chocolate just to tide you over. It's part of my religion.
How about coffee? Is it the same thing? Is it the same kind of high that you get?
Well, it's a little different. They go well together, I think. They're coupled nicely. When I'm writing, I usually go to a coffee shop, and I try not to have chocolate necessarily while I'm writing, but I like to have a little carbohydrate, like a nice cinnamon roll or something like that.
This is New England Authors with Kameel Nasr. We're speaking with Kathy Eliscu. It's really a fun book. I enjoyed reading it, although I'm a male, and you have a lot of characters in here. Tell us about some of the other characters that you have.
Well, one of the characters is the niece, who's a actress in New York, auditioning for roles and that kind of thing. There's the brother, Richard, who is single and very needy. And the main character, Tink, or Katrinka, is trying to match him up all the time, mostly to get him off her back. Ben is the male love character, and he plays, which actually I modeled Ben after my late husband, at least the good parts of it. Yes. Well, some of the other parts too, but not the storyline. But he's the fiance of Tink. And those are probably the main characters. There are a lot of secondary characters. Lorraine, who's this cousin. I don't know if you're wanting this information, but most of these are combined characters from my life. I combined them and then went crazy with them.
I understand that there's a mixture of your fiction and your real life in here. It's very very true. Yeah.
In fact, one thing that was kind of funny was after my brother read it, his name is Steve. I modeled Richard after Steve, in part. After he read it, he said to me, "It was fun, but I had a lot of trouble figuring out who everybody was." And so because he was so close to it, I think he had a little bit of a hard time figuring out the characters. He was taking it very literally.
Yeah, I think this reminds me kind of Little Women, of the family is put into the book.
Sure.
Yeah. So what message do you want to get across here? Are you here to entertain, or is there something deeper you want to say?
I think with this book, mostly it's entertainment, but I did try to point out in kind of a subtle way, or maybe not so subtle, some of the ridiculousness of our healthcare system. And that was based on reality. I think, when people need medicines and so on, and there are some bits and pieces where the main character, who's a nurse, is trying to get a medication for someone, and what you have to go through is kind of crazy.
Yes.
Actually, can I read a teeny piece?
Sure, go ahead.
Let me see if I can put my hands on that.
Yeah. And you know about this because you are a nurse involved in right into some of the absurdities of our medical system. Yeah.
Yes, I'm retired now. I hope I can find this, but we'll talk while I'm looking.
you got a lot of marks there.
Well, I know.
Yeah. And so while you're looking for that, I just wanted to know, beyond that, are you an entertainer? This is what I was kind of asking. Are you?
Oh, no. Well, no. I mean,
it's an entertaining book.
Thank you.
Is that what it is? Is that your end game, or?
No, not at all.
All right, that's what I...
But when I went to college for the first time, before I thought about nursing school, I went for theater and voice. But then I got pregnant and got married in that order.
I see.
And became a mommy. And I actually got into nursing because I was so thrilled about giving birth that I wanted to go into obstetrics, which I did for a while.
Oh, so that was your personal experience?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead and read.
Okay, so this is a conversation. One person is, I am calling in the book Dumbo insurance person, and the other is me. So the insurance person says, "Thank you for calling Care Little RX. My name is Doris. Can I help you?" "Hi, Doris. I'm calling from... May I have your name and insurance number, please?" "Well, Doris, I'm calling from Dr. Policy number, please?" "I don't have one. I mean, I'm a nurse at a medical clinic. I'm calling on behalf of our patient, Mrs. Fur... Without the policy number, I cannot help you, ma'am." 10 minutes later, Doris transfers me to another department so I can obtain the policy number of our sweet elderly patient who doesn't even know what company she has now, much less a policy number. But that was 3 phone calls ago. So I can't even tell you how much time and energy and expense is spent now by healthcare people trying to get even the necessary things, much less anything above that, for their patients.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of time spent.
So, did you have for your next book? Did you have the idea of trying to talk about the medical system?
For the serious
your
book,
serious book.
Partly, but that's probably a minor theme.
Is it fiction? Your serious book?
No, this is the one that my husband and I were writing. So it's a story of his cancer.
Oh, I see. That's
told,
right. That's right. You were saying
and
that.
he was a physician, so it's told through the eyes of a physician and a nurse who now have to go through it on a personal level. And some of it does involve the healthcare system, including, the ridiculousness of it.
It is a ridiculous system. So he knew the system very well too. Did you meet? We both did. Did you meet at work?
We did. We did back in 2001.
Did you work in a hospital?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anyway, it's really good. I'll be looking forward to. You have to send me your next book when it comes out. Is it going to be another 10 years?
Well, that book, no. But I actually started a sequel to this.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. But it's in the very early stages, and I also. I'm just going to say this. I have a screenplay which is ready to go, which has nothing to do with any of this, but it's a family comedy. And I'm aching to get a name of anyone in the film industry. So if anyone's watching this, call me.
Call Kathy.
I just want to get it looked at.
Call Kathy Eliscu, and she's in Maine, and we're just really happy to have you here. It's a creative book, and this is New England Authors with Kameel Nasr. Thank you.